Hey, everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ podcast. On this episode, I have one of my closest friends, automotive consultant extraordinaire, ID agency, WCCS Hot Wheels, Mr. Vincent Russo. Vinny, how you doing, bud?
Great, man. How are you?
I'm doing okay. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to throw this out there. Now, Vinny's been on the show before. Now, Vinny and I talk almost every day about shit that we probably shouldn't buy, but we get really excited about. Now, Vinny has been looking for a beater. And I don't want to
Yeah.
say a beater. I'm just going to say a car that he could drive every day. Yeah, no, I'll say,
It's a
something
beater.
that's,
No,
it's a beater.
the search started as looking for a beater.
Looking for a beater.
Yes.
Um, the search still continues for said beater. We
Yes.
have not found it yet. We've come across a whole bunch of stuff that is, in my eyes and Vinny's eyes, are really, really cool. But then, our better halves always kind of look at these things and be like, I don't really know if you should buy that because I don't want to be seeing it. Where Vinny and I are like, these are the greatest things ever. Like, find me an all black, jet black Seville, and Vinny and I are like,
Oh, dude,
immediately.
that one I should have picked up, and I'm still mad that but
So,
Concours Edition, DeVille, yeah. So some backstory is that in my fleet, I've got my Caddy, I've got a Lexus SUV. My fiance works from home. She turned in her lease on her BMW last year, and she hasn't really needed a car. I mean, we've got a couple of cars, and I have my motorcycle as a daily. So I have a brand new
yep,
BMW R18 bagger. And the problem is that we went through kind of a rainy season here in California, or there in
yep,
California, and I realized that obviously I can't take the bike in the rain. I'm not comfortable driving the bike in the rain. And it's a mess if anybody's
yeah,
ever tried to
yeah,
daily a bike in the rain. But I don't want to leave. We have an elderly dog who is prone to seizures, and just in general safety reasons, like I don't leaving her without a car. So when I do
sure.
have to take the truck, she can't drive the motorcycle, obviously. The Caddy isn't really any better in the rain than the motorcycle. So the idea was like, I was like, look, until, she wants another B7 Alpina, which is the one
Hmm.
that I had, went up to Vancouver and is living a wonderful life with JP right now.
Yeah,
He's a rock star in Vancouver because the B7s are even more rare in Canada than they were here. And the example that JP and I bought together, that he bought me out of, was gorgeous. The
great.
blue long wheelbase was
Yep,
great.
gorgeous car.
So the idea was that Tana's like, look, later on in the year, she's got a couple of promotions going on with her job. She's like, look, I want to get either a V8 M3 convertible or another B7. It's like, great. But we've got like 8 months before we're in a position to take that on. I was like, well, look, let me just buy what you and I consider a beater,
Well,
which,
let's talk about the beater.
yes,
Let's talk about what a beater is, right? So like the beater is the car that if you're fortunate enough to be able to get one, you buy one and you stop caring. Now, I'm not going
yes,
to say you're going to stop caring because in the mind, it's the car you don't care about. It's the car that you can take anywhere. It's the car that you don't really care that much about. The problem with this is if you're like myself and Vin, you can't help but caring. So even if you buy a beater, you're not going to keep it a beater because every part of your body goes, I should fix this up.
yeah,
When the smart thing to do would be to leave it alone. But
we can't.
so technically the beater is just that. It should be a beater. Benny and I can't do
The
that. So
way the way I explain it and I tried to explain it to Tanis, is that to us, a beater is like an old pair of shoes. If you're going to go work in the
right,
yard, you're going to do something, you're not going to go put on your brand new Air Force Ones or your
right.
Jordans or whatever it is that you just spent $200 on. That's, or, the shoes that you run to the grocery store. That's not that. The beater is the shoes you've had forever, an old pair of
Comfortable.
shell tops or something like
Yep.
that. And you don't care what happens to them. And if something happens to them, you throw them out and you
Right.
just put another, in rotation. So no emotional connection, reliable, doesn't have to be pretty. You can park it on the street, somebody sideswipes it, you don't
Fine.
care, that kind of stuff. But the problem is once you're looking at that price point, then you come across all of these other things that could be a beater because of the price point, but then we find like, oh, this would still be kind of
Hmm.
cool, like if I did this and this, and we have a
Right.
sickness, and it is what it is. So the Tanis's bigger problem with the beater is just and she has some valid points in her thought. She's like,
Hmm.
why are you going to spend between $3,000 and $6,000, depending on, where you're
Yeah,
looking? Why are you going to spend that much money on something that's essentially a throwaway when, we can just wait and tough it out for a couple of months and then put that money towards, whatever the keeper car is going to be?
of course.
And I was like, which 100% makes sense.
Valid points. But
But that gives me, as a man in the relationship, anxiety for the next 6 to however many long months
Mhm.
of knowing every time I have to take the truck and she's alone, what if something happens?
Correct.
So there's this, and that's the reason I need the beater for me personally. Everybody's got a different reason. All these car guys, listen, we all have multiple cars for different reasons. Everything, serves a purpose, blah, 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 whatever. But for in my particular situation, it's that I just don't want to leave her alone without transportation
Sure.
in case of an emergency
Nice and reliable
and
transportation.
reliable transport. So like basically the beater would be mine
Yep.
and she would never have to drive it. Like
Right.
she'd have to look at it in the parking space next to our other car, but like
That's it.
The Lexus would be left for her. She needs to go on a road trip. I mean, look, it's an LX 570. I would tell her to get in the car and drive to the East Coast without even checking the oil.
Sure.
I mean, the truck is reliable.
Yeah.
I'm looking at like other stuff to where I don't care how ugly it is. You've got your quote
Oh
unquote
yeah.
beat, your Jeep, and and again, like it's just simply like, is the interior clean? Does it have air? Do all the
Correct.
windows work?
Correct.
And that's it. Like that's all we care about. Like it's going to be reliable, but it's not going to be pretty.
Right.
So I had bought a QX4 that had some
Yep.
transmission issues that I misdiagnosed at purchase, and I ended up having to sell it because it was going to be more money to fix than what I thought. I still made a couple $100 on it and learned a
Yep.
little bit of a lesson, but that was going to be a perfect situation because I felt like the QX4 was the right size.
Yep.
Two-wheel drive, not four-wheel drive. The guy before me had done a ton of engine work on it, so I knew that even with 250,000 miles, the engine was going to be reliable. Once the transmission was fixed,
Yep.
the interior was clean, everything worked, paint was faded, bumper was
Fine.
dented.
Who cares?
Didn't he had brand new Michelin tires on it? Like all of the important stuff for us
Yeah.
had already been done. Fix the transmission, drive it into the ground. Who the hell cares? When it's done and over with, you literally throw it away,
Right.
right? I mean, who cares?
Beater.
But
That's the definition
to
of a beater.
to people that don't kind of understand that, it looks as basically like you're just wasting money. And I look at it as like again, like another pair of shoes. I mean, every pair of shoes that you own has a specific purpose. So dress shoes versus sneakers versus flip-flops. I mean, those are all three different purposes, but they're all technically shoes.
But I'm going to say this: the problem with some beaters is you get attached to beaters. So Vinny mentioned my Jeep, and I bought an '02 Grand Cherokee back in COVID with 118,000 miles on it. I paid $5,000 for it.
Yeah.
The problem is it is now in the rotation as our full-time daily driver because it's been reliable. And now we've fallen in love with this stupid thing. So now what am I doing? I'm like, well, the headlights are faded. Well, you know what? It's a 22-year-old Jeep. You know what? I could buy a brand new set of headlights for $7. Right. So
Yeah.
it's like, so now all of a sudden you're deep. This could sound really weird, but you're debeating it and you're basically unfucking it and you're making it into a decent driver.
Right.
So that now when people come up to it, like it was funny, I had a chip in the glass that I had a glass guy come and fix yesterday. And he looked at it and he's like, this is the cleanest O2 that I have ever seen. He's like, it looks brand new. And that's the problem because I think that we look at these old vehicles and if you're like myself and Vin, we feel that we have to rescue them. So
Yeah.
what will we do? We'll steam clean the interiors and we'll redo switches and we'll start doing things like, well, the window moldings are crap. Well, I'll just put new moldings in and I'll do this. Now all of a sudden, this $5,000 truck that you didn't really care for, now you've got this sentimental attachment into it, and you're like, son of a bitch.
Because it's been good to you.
And it has been good to me. And that's the problem with falling in under the kind of the beater thing. So it's almost like if you're gonna get a beater, you have to keep it that way. You
Yeah.
can't do anything to like my buddy Mike, he got he's got the perfect definition of a beater. He found a 2500 series GMC pickup truck.
Yeah.
The body is a hash. Like it's got a big dent in the back and it's sideswiped. The paint is all checked and faded. It's got like 100,000 miles on it. The interior looks brand new and it drives perfectly. That is
Yeah.
perfect. because
You can
that
pull.
nobody's going to look at twice because it's dented up. But the
Yep.
interior, you get in it and you go, this is really nice.
And you're the only one that has to look at the interior. You don't care what the outside looks like. Everybody else has to look at it. Who cares?
Correct. Correct.
So yes, and it's, tennis looked at, I found a couple of discoveries and P38 Range Rovers and even like the 322 Range Rovers, which can be notorious for issues. But I've also seen some with 300,000 miles. I mean, Rob Ferretti had his Range Rover, his 322 Range Rover, and he had over 240,000 miles on it, and it's
Yeah.
still fine when he got rid of it. So, but the problem is like on a beater, you don't want to buy something that's going to expose yourself to big repairs either. So
Correct.
generally, it's something like a Silverado or a Jeep Grand Cherokee or
Yeah.
QX4, which is basically a Pathfinder, that they made 10 million of them. You go into any, pluck and pull, and there's parts there. You go online, like you said,
Right.
taillights are $7. I mean, there isn't a
Right.
part on Silverado that you can't get at O'Reilly's,
Right.
or AutoZone or anything, because they made millions of them. And and so that's really what it's about. I mean, to get a second or third gen discovery, that even if it was well taken care of, like you still run the risk of like it could
Your
break.
airbags go out, your suspension. So let me ask you, because we've been on this quest for a while now.
Yeah.
What is it, are you finding that beaters just aren't that common anymore? And or if you do find them, that the prices now are
Yeah.
just getting way too high because people are hanging on to old cars longer?
So yeah, this is one of the things that's been interesting that I uncovered is that I'm noticing a trend of sub $10,000 cars are now not what $10,000 cars used to be. So if you
Hmm.
were to do a search, I mean, look, Facebook Marketplace, offer up, Craigslist has kind of gone down a little bit when they started charging, but there's still cars there that you can find. But you have to be so careful about scams. And
Yeah.
I've been able to find them a lot. But I think that more to the point is that the interest rates have gone so high on the expensive cars that a sub $10,000 car for a general person, if you've got a car now, that's maybe worth $4,000 or $5,000, you can, turn around and sell it. You've got some money in your pocket. Maybe you pull some money out of your 401k. The average person may have a couple $1,000s saved up in the bank, to put towards another
Yep.
car. But if you look at what $5,000 to $10,000 buys you now versus what it used to buy you, it's
Yeah.
completely different because you're looking at, I mean, listen, I sent you a couple of these that I found that's insane.
Oh yeah.
250,000 miles, salvage title.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
It can't pass smog. It's, got some cosmetic issues and the bumper's falling off. Like the car,
Right.
this Lexus IS 250. So if you looked at an IS 250 and you're like, okay, $5,500 is a decent price. Okay, it's a Lexus, so 200,000 miles doesn't really matter to
Fine.
me. But then you start going into it deeper. It's like, okay, well, now it's got a salvage title. Now it's got throttle body issues. It's throwing codes. It won't pass
Right.
smog, which in California, like, is a big
It has
problem.
to.
In
Yep.
Texas, Florida, any of the other ones, if you don't have an inspection, who cares if it's got a check engine light, but you can't in California. So here
Right.
you have it. Now you're at a car that in good condition, presentable and stuff, should be about $5,500. Now you have one that should be a $2,000 car, like one step from being in the
Exactly.
junkyard. They want $5,500 and they're getting it.
I know.
They're getting it. I'm
And
watching these
that's
things. I'm saving them, and I'm watching now. Maybe they're just marking them as sold, but I have a lot of these guys that I'm talking to. They're like, I've got 3 people coming to look at it tonight. Okay,
but doesn't that make you look like, I look now at my old Jeep that I have, right?
yeah,
And I think maybe, and I've done some stuff to it, right? Like I put in new window regulators because they failed. I put in a new cooling system because it failed. Maybe soup to nuts, tires, shocks. Maybe I'm into this thing for maybe 9 grand in total.
okay,
But I've put 40,000 miles on it.
yeah,
Okay. So you do 9 grand, 40,000 miles. Okay. That's pretty good. Um, but then I look at it and I'm like, I just flipped 151,000 miles on the thing. Is it one of those things that now I can put up for 8 grand to sell? 9 grand, right?
and
But then what would I get for that? And what you're telling me is
you
nothing.
can't, nothing. Yeah, anything under $10,000 right now, like you really, really have to search. And if you happen to come across a buyer that I know what I have,
I love them.
they hold strong, and they're getting the offers, they're getting the people to come look at them. And I honestly think it has to do with the interest rates. I think it has to do with just what's out on the market. That the cars have been salvaged and totaled. And, years ago and now, if they're even IS 300s are a huge one. They are all trashed. So if you can
Yeah.
find, I mean, if you find a stock one in good condition where the dash isn't sticky, because a lot of the IS 300s had issues with that. So many of them were tuner cars that got destroyed.
Yep.
They're still going for 5 grand, 200,000 miles, destroyed cars, interior trashed, leather ripping.
Yeah.
LS 400 Lexus again is another one. Like I mean, the million-mile Lexus
They used to be
did,
cheap.
but eight thousand
Cheap.
dollars. Yeah, a
Yeah.
1990 LS 400 with over 200,000 miles in running condition will get 8 grand, 5 grand, six
Now,
grand.
now keep in mind, that's 34 years ago.
Yeah,
That's a 34-year-old car.
yeah,
Okay. That's the equivalent. If you were back in 1990, you're talking about buying something from the 60s or the late 50s.
yeah.
That's, these are not, I mean, this is the thing that boggles my mind when I think about this stuff. So what about let's talk cars of the elderly for a moment, right? Let's
Okay.
talk about let's talk about Buick Park Avenues and old Cadillacs and stuff like that. Because that's kind of always my go-to. I'm like, if I want to find an old beater car, I will go to the elderlies, the elderlies.
Yeah,
I will try to find something that was driven by an older person.
yeah.
And it's gonna have some dings, it's gonna have some dents because they hit everything. I know I will too when I get to be that age, but the mileage is generally low and they're generally very well maintained.
Generally, yeah. What happens is that grandpa's got a black on black Cadillac DeVille that he kept in his garage and only drove 60,000 miles, since 1995.
Hmm.
And he passes away, the son gets it, or the grandson gets it.
Yeah.
He knows that that's a collector's item. He knows that guys like you and I are looking for DeVilles. The lowrider guys
Yeah.
want a frame caddy. This
Yep.
collector, oh, it's black on black. It's rare. It's a Concord edition. It's rare. Doesn't have the
Hmm.
North Star engine. It has an LT1. It's basically an Impala Super Sport. I mean, using the
Yep.
like the mid 90s
Yep.
DeVilles as an example. Now they're like, oh, good luck finding one in this condition. Now I want 15 grand for it.
Right. Right.
So like
Yeah.
the other day when I found that Concord Edition DeVille, even though it wasn't the LT1 motor, it was black on black in really good condition. And you never see the DeVilles in black on black. They're very
Right.
hard to find in decent condition. I mean, but I've looked at, it's just amazing, like, the salvage title cars and a lot of these, like the cars, like your go-to cars, like the Buick Regals and things like that.
Yeah.
Because what happens with those is the guys up north in Detroit. I mean, I talked to the guys from Mob Steel, and we spent a couple of years where when I was living in Florida, is that I was scavenging all of
Yeah.
the trailer parks for Buick Regals and Park Avenues and things like that because I could pick them up for 2 grand.
Right.
They would fly down and drive them back to Detroit, and they would drive them until literally the rust would cause the
Just
fenders to fall off.
right.
But that was their winter beater. They were reliable. They got good gas mileage. They were two
Yep.
grand into it. They didn't care. And they got it from an old person that had 15,000 miles on it. And it just didn't matter. Like, okay, it's gold.
Yeah.
With
Who
tan
cares?
cloth interior. It's a
Yeah.
winter beater. Literally, I'm buying it to throw it away because, like, to your point, you got 40,000 miles in your Jeep. It still is going to. You have to pay to play. There is a cost involved with driving a car, no
Hmm.
matter what it is. Now, you can
Correct.
justify it differently being if it's a collector car or something that you enjoy or something like that. But it's a very rare situation that you can get into a car, drive it for 40,000 miles, sell it, make money. It happens. You and I have done it, but it's
Yeah.
going into a beater. The idea is that I have my mindset that I'm going to drive it for as long as I can, get my $3,000 to $6,000 out of it, like you did with your
Yeah.
truck, or $10,000 out of it. I
Yep.
mean, 40,000 miles over all these years, the minimal times that you've had any issues with it, like, look, you got your money out. And even if you got 5 grand back from that car, that means you
Right.
spent $1,000 every 10,000 miles.
Right. And I have absolutely no plans on selling it because it's been such a good car. So like my
Right.
plan is to now it's like I'm almost on a quest. I'm like, I can get this sucker to 250,000 miles. You know what
Right.
I mean? Because it's
Right.
still in good shape. So do you think there are still beaters out there for 2,500 bucks, or has that price point now risen to 6 grand, 7 grand?
In majority of the cases, it has, because what you're having now is that the only place to list these things like Facebook Marketplace has become so inundated with scams. Um, OfferUp has become so inundated with, dealers and other scams and other people, that unless the only way really is to have that relationship with somebody in your neighborhood who,
Yeah.
you walk up and you see the car had been sitting there for a while, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
there's a car in Matt's neighborhood right now, Farah, since every time I go to see his house, it's an SUV and been sitting there, had not moved. And this is a very, very special SUV. And I don't know if I ever
Yeah.
talked to you about it or not, but I've gone twice up to this guy's house and the door because it hasn't moved. And
Yeah.
no, let me phrase it. It's moved once or twice. So I know it moves. I know it runs,
Yeah.
but the air suspension shot and stuff like that. So like if I can get a hold of this guy, you know, more importantly, if I get a hold of his wife and
Right.
say, hey, listen, let's get this thing out of your driveway. I know it's been there and not moved for 2 years at
Right.
least. So
Right.
something like that, you can still get it. You just have to be a little bit more resourceful about getting the bargains that you have. But to go on to Facebook Marketplace, look at $3,000 and see what you've got, it's a little scary. And then you've got these guys that, are you going to have to worry about going somewhere and meeting them, and they're going to rob you for your money?
Well,
Are
so
they?
that's you had brought that up, all the scams and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
give for people who don't know, give an example of a scam.
Um, Most of the time it's going to be somebody that, if you really have to do your due diligence, look at the entire ad. So you start looking at the photos. And I mean, I've seen cars listed with license plates from other countries. Um, a lot of the times you'll see them with the license plates blanked out. So you don't,
Yeah.
you really can't check that way because, even you can search car information now with the license plate numbers. You don't necessarily need the VIN anymore. But a lot
Right.
of times they're doing that. But I've caught guys with pictures posting. If you'll look, the electrical outlet in the corner is a European outlet, not a US outlet. So I know the pictures weren't
Right.
taken somewhere else. Or you can sometimes see just from the construction where the wires are run on the outside of the walls and they're not running conduit properly.
Right.
So like this didn't, wherever shop this car is in, it didn't pass code in the US because it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
So you really have to look at the visual cues. Some of it is the seller itself. A big, big, big scam. And it goes back to if it's too good to be true,
It
it
is. Yeah.
probably is. So if you're looking at something that I'm looking at these cars, $8,000, and you start looking at enough of them, the markets should be okay. Should be somewhere between like 7 and 10,000. All of a sudden, this guy's got it listed for $4,000, and the pictures
Why?
maybe it's like a picture of a screenshot, or the resolution's really, really bad, and you can tell they took a picture off of a computer screen. Their English is broken and not
Yeah.
properly. They can't give you information on the history of the car, or maybe I bought it at an
Yeah.
auction. I don't know this, I don't know that. If you ask them for specific pictures and they can't quickly, or they won't take additional pictures for you, that's another thing.
Right.
So like find something to interact with the person and make sure that that car is actually there or real. Meet them somewhere public,
Absolutely.
bank parking lot,
Yep.
police station parking lot. If you're really, just anywhere, even a, a small mini mall or something like that,
Yeah.
and
Something.
bring somebody with you.
Correct.
It's just, this is the world that we live in right now. I actually years ago had bought a car. First time that it ever happened to me, I was buying an Avalanche for my dad. The gentleman was super nice, checked all the boxes. We went to go look at the truck. It was in great condition. He wanted to meet at the bank. Sure.
Sure.
I'm not hiding anything. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
So I bring him the cash. We go, and he's like, well, let's go into the bank. And I give him the cash. We do the transactions, doing the paperwork inside the bank. So there's cameras everywhere. I feel safe. He feels
Yep.
safe. He gives the cash to the bank teller and lets her count it. So she runs it through the machines. So not only are they counting it for accuracy, but their machines are also looking for fakes.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, no offense. I'm not, I
Why?
get it. I was
Yeah.
like, but what he's like, well, I had years ago, he goes, I had sold the car to somebody, and like every fifth or sixth bill was counterfeit mixed
No
in.
shit. Really?
He's like, so now I go straight to my bank. I let them cash it. If it checks out, they get deposited. I don't leave here with the cash, because the other issue is like, I give you $6,000 cash and then I follow you home
Right.
and I take my cash back.
Right. Hmm.
There are situations where that happens. So the cash goes right into the bank. He knows it's accurate. He knows it's clean. He knows everything's good. Transaction's done,
That's a
and
great
it's
thing.
great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's my recommendation. You go to a bank, and if it's going to be a heavy cash, a heavy cash sale somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 grand, let the bank count it. Let them check it out. If
Yeah.
it's an honest seller, they won't have an issue with it. I mean, you can go to
Right.
their bank for all you
Oh,
want.
100%. Sure.
Any bank will count the money for you and check for counterfeit. They just will.
Right. Right.
Um, so that's one. I mean, the other issue is you'll see if you pull up the listing, the profile on like Facebook, for instance, they will have a lot of times they'll list the dollar amount in an uneven number. So like $4,376, like for just some random reason. And I
Yeah.
don't know, I haven't figured out exactly why they do it, but I do see a lot of these scams
Yeah.
at a very strange price point. Um, Now I saw some guy selling a car the other day for $6,969, but I know
Right.
why he picked that number because he thought he was being silly.
Right.
6969.
Yeah.
Uh, so, but if you look at the profile and you see the other items they have for sale, this is a big one that you really want to look at. So that'll tell you that screen of other items for sale will give you the how long have they been in Facebook.
Yep.
It'll give you their profile picture and a link to their profile, which I recommend checking. But more importantly, it'll give them a listing of everything else that they have for sale or have sold. So if you see somebody's profile and they've got 10 or so different items that are marked sold, that they've sold, anywhere from a couple years up to recently,
Yeah.
and it could be clothing, it could be this, could be that, doesn't matter, but it means that there's been an established profile for the seller selling things on Facebook. A lot of times what you'll see is they'll take a car, popular car, maybe like a two-door Tahoe or something like that,
Yep.
that, everybody's looking for. They'll list it, and I'm not even kidding, 20, 25 cities all over the country. And you're like, okay, well, they want to get, you know, but they want to get a little bit more coverage is what you would normally
Yeah.
think. Problem is that they change where the location of the vehicle is locally every single time.
Yeah.
So in the ad,
That's
they won't
happened to
say
me.
this is actually in California, but I list it in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Right.
That's kind of a red flag.
Oh yeah.
Same
I
picture.
looked at a couple like that as well, where I called up and I said, okay, I'd like to come see the car. Where is it? Oh, well, the car's actually in Nevada. Well, really? Because it's listed in the Bay Area in San Francisco. Well, the car's in Nevada. You'd have to come here to see it. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
See you later. Goodbye.
Yeah.
You know?
So, think the biggest problem that I have is I get, it's the thrill of the hunt. You
Hmm.
find something, you
Which is
get
fun.
excited about it. You're, before you even get a message back from the seller, you've already built it in your head what you're going to do to it, and you
Hmm.
get emotionally attached to this car before you even get a response back
You
from
haven't
them.
even seen it in person yet.
And
Yeah.
and I do it. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
The other thing is, really look at the pictures. Like, look at the engine bay. Get pictures of the engine bay to look for rust. Look for in the lighting. Look for body panels being different colors, so you can tell. And if they don't say anything about it, now that you can check most of the backgrounds of the cars with license plates instead of VIN
Hmm.
numbers. Because a lot of times they won't list the VIN number because to most sellers it's like, oh, it's 17 digits. I got to figure it out. It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
numbers. It's okay,
Yeah.
fine. But if you use a license plate, you can look, and that'll at least tell you if it's got a salvage title or not, if they didn't
Sure.
mention it in the ad. Most banks won't finance a salvage title, so they keep it under $5,000 so somebody just has
Right.
cash. And in some places you can't get insurance. In some
Yeah.
states, it's a problem with the salvage title to get it registered. But so you just really have to you have to really think about it. I for a lot of times was taking the pictures and I was giving them to Tanis to look at
Yeah.
because she's looking at it from a fresh perspective, and she would
Sure.
see, it looks like there's rust discolored, underneath the engine compartment. It looks like there's a
Yeah.
little something here. It looks like they're like,
Well,
why
fresh
is
set of eyes
that?
always makes a difference. Always,
Because
always, always.
you're drunk looking at them, and
And, and
saying,
and we do this all the time. So for instance, like I'll send Vin a car or he'll send me a car and he'll be like, what do you think? And I'll start pointing. I'm like, dude, the interior, no, did you see this? And
yeah,
because you have this emotional reaction to the car, your eyes and your brain will overlook stuff.
yeah,
And that's where you need that subjective opinion to come in and be like, I know you like it, but did you see this? Or have you thought about this?
yeah,
And it's amazing how many cars we've talked each other out of
yeah,
just because of that reason.
yeah,
And it's because, we do this a lot because, part of it is we do love cars and like we're at the point where we can kind of buy cars if we like them and sell them and experience them and it's not going to really hurt us in any way. So
right,
it's a lot of fun to do that. However, you still want to do it and be smart about it. You still want
yeah,
to have that extra set of eyes to go over it and to offer you guidance on it.
yeah,
Because listen, we all look at things where we're like, I really want this, and we try 1,000 ways in our minds to justify it. And if you are emotionally invested, you will find a way.
oh,
You
sure.
need you need that other person to pull you out of the darkness
Oh,
sometimes.
it's like being in an abusive relationship. It's like, she, you're a girl and your boyfriend's beating you, but you still love him. It's like, yeah, but he takes me out to dinner. It's it's great, and
Yeah,
he introduced me to my parents. Like, yeah, but he's still beating you. Like, you need to
he
leave
beats you
him.
up. Yeah,
And and we do the same thing with cars all the time. It's like, yeah, but see, I could if I just did this, and you're like,
yeah.
no,
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 no, no,
no,
no, no,
no,
no.
no. Yeah, but
So
it would be kind of cool if we did. No, no.
So, so what have you, where are we at this point? Where are we with the search and the hunt? And what have you adjusted price point? Have you adjusted things that you are looking for? And where do you
Yeah, I
feel
mean,
that you're going to
I
end
have a
up a
little
little bit?
bit. I've kind of calmed down on the idea a little bit. Just to avoid the issues at home for more than anything.
Mhm.
She really feels like it's going to be okay, and she's not nearly as nervous about not having a car. I mean, it is a concern,
Yeah,
but we look. I absolutely could drive the Caddy in the rain. The wipers
of
work. The
course.
windows are
Oh
sealed.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's no big deal. If it came down to that, I absolutely could.
sure.
So I mean, do I need another car? No, we don't.
Right,
None of us need another car. But how many pairs of shoes do we all have? How many pairs of,
right.
how many hats do I have? I mean, holy
Of
crap.
course.
So, it's for me, for her, it's a waste of money for right now. For me, there's a level of anxiety, of peace of mind that I feel like $3,000 or $4,000 to have a peace of mind for something like that is fine. But so I'm still looking, but I'm a little bit lighter on it. I mean,
Sure.
I found a really nice that Jag XK,
Yeah,
which is a
which
great
was
buy right
nice
now.
car.
Yeah, they're a very nice car, comfortable. Not even the XKR, which
Yep.
they're when you do the research on them, yes, they're Jags, but they're more reliable than what you would think and easier to work on
But
for the Ford era.
but so Vinny did. He forwarded me this ad for an Jaguar. And what I liked about the ad, the car had high mileage, had about 100, almost 160,000 miles
Yeah,
on it. But one owner for the last how many
19
years?
years.
19 years.
Yeah,
So you know the car was maintained. You know
yep.
the car was serviced. So when I look at ads like that, I go, okay, I am more apt to say, yes, go look at this. Because that when you have an owner that's had the car for that long, they're invested in the vehicle and they probably maintained it and stuff like that, especially if they have records for it. So here's my question. Did you call him?
Yeah, I mean, we talked to him. If he didn't live, one of the other positives about it was he lived in an area north of me that was a very affluent neighborhood. And the
Yeah.
pictures that he had sent me of his car in front of his house, I can see it was a nicer house. It
Yep.
wasn't taking pictures of the streets in Compton somewhere.
Right.
It was a nicer neighborhood, a nicer house. His other cars that he had in the background were, look, they
Mhm.
weren't Maybachs or anything, but they were still, nicer, echelon
Nice
cars.
cars.
For me, the litmus test is always tires.
Right.
Um, I I looked at supercharged Land Rover that I really, really liked. Those get to be a little bit scary, but it already had the coilover conversion done.
Yeah.
A lot of the issues that were addressed, the '04 to '07 Range Rovers were the more reliable of the years.
Yeah.
And so he had addressed most of the main concerns. The mileage, was good and stuff like that. But when he sent me other pictures, I looked and I saw that he had Lionheart tires on this thing.
Right. So the cheapest, rock bottom, crappiest rubber you could
So
buy.
he's able to say in the ad he has brand new tires, but he probably spent $600 for the entire set, mounted and balanced, to say he has them. The other one I look at is windshield wipers.
Yeah.
Are they even changed? Do they need to be
Right.
changed? Did he change them with like whatever the cheapest one you could walk into AutoZone? If I walk up to a car and it's got Pirelli tires and Bosch wiper blades, this guy
Yeah.
took his car,
Yeah. Well,
even if it has a
it's
salvage title.
dude, it's very funny you say that. So like, I had mentioned earlier that I got a little stone chip in my windshield fixed on my again my
Yeah.
beater. But the guy came up and he goes, "Oh, you got Michelin's." He goes, "You got Bilsteins on this thing." And it just so happens Vinny's wearing a Bilstein shirt, but the fact is, yes, I do. And that, to Vin's point, that is a telltale sign.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Old cars will absolutely keep going if you maintain them. There is no I used to be so gun shy about looking at stuff with like 70, 80,000 miles. Now I look at stuff if it's got 150,000 miles on it, but you have service records and it's been maintained and I can go over a car and see that you've done the right stuff. Mileage doesn't scare me anymore at all.
Well,
It
because the modern cars will go if they've been properly maintained. The Range Rover is another example I go back to because I've never had a Range Rover. I've always
Mhm.
wanted one. Tanis loves the Range Rovers, especially the older
Yeah.
Discoveries. Um, you know, what I've what helped me stop being so scared about the mileage, like you see, is if you look at the ads of how many of these trucks have over 200,000 miles.
Yeah, that's right.
So here's, even if at that point the one you're looking at has problems, but it made it to 225,000 miles, which means that over the course of the lifetime of the truck, whatever did happen to it, whatever was broken on it, whether it did break or not break,
Yeah.
like I have seen multiple examples of these Range Rovers with over 200,000 miles or close to it, 180,000 miles, that people are selling for whatever the reason of selling it. But like people are, oh, those things are pieces of junk, they're whatever. I'm like, yeah, if they were, they wouldn't have cleared six figures.
Well, and here's the other thing. If you're looking at a car right now that has, again, you see a lot of vehicles with over 200. It's not uncommon nowadays, 225, 250,000
Yeah.
miles to see on a vehicle, right? Think about how long it's going to take you to drive 250,000 miles. So for instance, I bought my Grand Cherokee with 118,000 miles on it. It's got
Yeah.
152,000 miles on it right now, whatever it is. Um, do you know how long it's going to take me to get to 250,000? It'll take me 10 years to get there, right? My old Bronco, my 28-year-old Bronco has 112,000 miles on it. My mechanic looks at that thing. He's like, you could literally drive this for the rest of your life. You could drive it for another 15 years. You're fine. And it's one of those things where that it's not, again, if they're maintained, think about if you're only going to drive 5,000 miles a year,
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's
right?
like, so the average lease is what, 12,000 miles a year?
12,000 miles a year,
You know,
yeah.
even bump it to 15 for easy math. That means for you to
Hmm.
get to 150,000 miles, that's 10 years worth of driving for the
Yeah.
average person.
That's
And
right.
15,000 is more than what the average person usually drives.
Correct.
So like sickos like us probably drive more than that, but we spread that over five different cars. So for me to get this
Correct.
beater that I'm only going to drive when it rains, or if
Hmm.
we need a second car or something like that, if I, you know, if she's got to be somewhere and I got to take Ziggy somewhere to work or something like that,
Yeah.
like, you know, maybe I put 5,000 miles a year on this car, maybe. So
Right.
if I get it with 150,000 miles and I need it to last another 15,000 miles, that's 3 years.
Right. Right. That's
So,
exactly
you know,
correct.
I don't need to drive it cross country. I don't need it to be, you know, my daily that where I'm gonna not gonna get to work because it's there. I just need it to be reliable enough to be able to sit, me start it up once a month, use it when I need to, everything works, and then I
Correct.
put it away.
Correct. That's exactly
So
right.
it really comes down to, like, you know, what are your intentions and what do you need? And the perspective is definitely changed on the mileage a lot because, you know, and I heard something the other day. It was I can't remember where I had heard it, but you know, we had talked about it. Is that, you know, the Japanese cars are engineered and designed for people to not maintain them. I mean, they just, the Japanese manufacturers,
They
the Korean
know that Americans
manufacturers,
aren't going to maintain their cars.
right. Now, does that make them more or less reliable than the German cars? No, because we have plenty of Mercedes and Volvos and even
Sure.
BMW that are out there with 300, 400, 500,000 miles. I mean, what the car that's got the most mileage of anything is that Volvo, right? That
Oh yeah.
P1800, like 3 million miles, you know,
Yeah.
outside of commercial trucks. So if you figure out that the Germans design their cars or the Europeans design their cars to be strictly maintained, to maintain it, to keep the reliability there, if you do that, they will last. I mean, look, the Range Rover, and again, I go back to it because this is what I've been looking for. Look, uh, what's his name? Harry, the journalist Harry
Yeah.
from,
Yeah. Yep.
uh,
Harry's Garage.
yeah. So his daily
Harry
driver is,
Metcalf. That's his
yeah,
name.
Harry
Metcalf.
Metcalf. His daily is a 322 Range Rover, which is that oh
Hmm.
04, oh 06, oh 07 kind of a body style.
Dude, my neighbor's got one
Jeremy
with
Clarkson.
258,000 miles on it. Literally
Jeremy Clarkson.
outside right now. Yeah.
Jeremy Clarkson drives his Range Rover on the farm, and he still has it. And he says it's the best vehicle he's ever had. So how can you sit there and say that, you know, that truck is such garbage, you know, because the owners didn't maintain them because they were leased and they threw
Right.
them out. And they took the 3 years they had in their lease and didn't lease them. Then somebody else bought them and they just drove them into the ground. And then because it was never touched, something broke. And now it needs a transmission because the transmission fluid's never been changed. Is that Range Rover's fault? No.
Right.
So again, it's really like, you know, try and take your emotion out of it. Try and look at it from a clear perspective. Find a buddy that you can bounce this off your ideas off of, that can
Yep.
sit there and be the voice of reason, and that's not going to, you know, will support you in the decisions that do make sense, but also call you out, you know, when they don't. I mean, how many text messages do we have back and forth where I just send you a picture of a car and the response is just no, period.
It's true. Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? And I'm like, I don't even need an explanation.
Right.
If you
Right. Right.
looked at
Right.
it, the one picture, and you're like, you're like, okay,
Right.
you know what? You're probably right. Like I was all excited,
Right.
but now that you say
Right.
that, looking at it differently, okay, probably not.
Right. Right. Right.
Or
Right.
it's I send you the picture and it's when are we going to get it?
Right. Yeah,
So
I think that's part of it, right? And you know, you run through the pros and cons, but here's the thing. There are still amazing used vehicles out there, and with the average
yeah,
price of a new vehicle approaching $47,000, that is an enormous, enormous amount of money, right? The average car payment right now is over $700 a month, which is
yeah.
bananas to me. Um, you know, if you can spend 7, 10, 12 grand and find something that's going to get you another 100,000 miles, again, think of how many miles a year you drive,
Yeah.
then you know what? That's pretty good. It's not going to be exactly what you want, but it'll be good, reliable transportation if it's been maintained, and you're not going to break the bank doing it.
So what I recommend is that you take 10 to 20% of what you're looking at to buy a car. So let's say I want a $5,000 car.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at I have five or more importantly, I have $5,000 to spend in a car. So now you're looking at $4,000 cars or even $3,500 cars. And the reason being is you've got registration,
Yep.
insurance, taxes, all
Sure.
that stuff that you have to pay for. But always recommend a PPI. But honestly, like with the way the market is right now, like you don't have time. Like, I mean, this stuff will get listed in the morning.
It
Somebody's coming to pick
goes.
it up at night. And
Right.
it's not necessarily that they're hiding anything, but they're like, I'm not going to deal with giving you a PPI when this guy's coming with cash in 6 hours and it's
Sure.
gone. Like, no offense to you, but like, I just want to sell the car.
Right.
But if you can do your due diligence, you get to the point where you're going to buy it, keep $1,000 or a certain percentage off to the side to have
You're
it
going to need
baseline.
it.
All the
Right.
fluids done, take it to the shop, you get all these because that way you know everything's been done. Oil change, coolant flush.
Correct.
If it says that they had just done that, and a lot of the sellers will do that, have the shop just check it out. Say, look, did they change the coolant? Is it okay? Okay, maybe it needs to be done, especially with summer coming. If you have a little bit of money to the side of that you're not going to like, I spent everything that I have in the car, and now I have nothing in case something breaks. That's a
Yeah.
problem because you're going to be
Correct.
really disappointed in it. And it sucks because you're like, I have 5 grand, so I can spend 5 grand in a car, but like you can't.
Right. You
You
can't.
can't. It's like, I have this chunk of money put aside, and I could add to it. I could take away from it. I could do whatever, but like I have this budget of saying, okay, here's what I want as a beater all in. And I do have to factor in, is it an out-of-state car? Now I'm paying like,
Hmm.
impound taxes and all these other fees and shit
Yeah.
like that at the DMV. So you really it's hard because it's such an emotional purchase and you're so excited about it. And as a car person, like whatever, but like anything that you can find if your budget's 5 grand, you can do your due diligence and look and find one for four. Sometimes you have to
Exactly.
be more creative about it where you're going. It's going to take some time. It takes a lot of time. It's a part-time job.
It
Driving
is. It is.
candidates crazy. You just going, hey, look at this. What do you think? You like that? You like that? You like that? It's
Well,
just
you know what? It is a part-time job, but again, this is where the patience pays off. And if you do look long enough, you do look hard enough, you will find the vehicle that you're looking for. Vinny made a great point. Whatever your budget is, take 20, 25% of that, stick it on the side because you will need that. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and you will need that.
yeah.
Um, you know, but otherwise just don't get discouraged. Keep looking for that car that you want, whether it's a beater or whether it's something else. I promise you'll find it. You don't have to be as maniacal as myself and Vin, but do your research because that
Well,
will save you tons of money at the going down the
and
road.
listen, be respectful. I mean, look, if you
Yes, yes.
I have told more than one person, I think I can come later on tonight or something happens, whatever, like let them know, hey, listen, something came up, I can't make it tonight. Like if you have somebody come to look at it, I understand, first come, first serve, it is what it is.
Hmm.
Hey, listen, I did some research on it. I just, don't really, I don't think it's the right fit for me. I thought I really liked it, but I don't think it's going to really work out. Or, check your insurance. I mean, I know a
Right.
lot of guys that
Yeah.
bought cars and all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, why is the insurance super high on this? Well, you didn't realize that that's a high stolen car or the parts
Right.
are super
It's a great
expensive
point.
in an accident. So, people will forget buying a car that they call their insurance company. Like, what do you mean it's $300 a month to insure it?
Yeah. That's
I
right.
mean, I looked at a Hayabusa before I bought my R18 bagger, and I wanted this Hayabusa as a daily really bad.
Yeah.
Price was good, was getting a good deal at the
Yeah,
dealer,
yeah.
everything was great. And I went to go get insurance on the thing, and they wanted $390 a month just insurance.
Yeah, no.
And I
That's
called around to
ridiculous.
everybody, and I'm like, dude, what is going on? And the insurance guy goes, it's a Hayabusa. Like
Right.
we know it does 190 miles an hour. We know it gets stolen because it's got a 1300 cc motor in it that people are
Right.
putting in smart cars. Like it's like we know. And I'm like, okay, well that's
Okay.
so basically, what I'm paying now is half, including my
Right.
payment and the insurance of what I would have spent on the Hayabusa. And
Right.
I like it a lot better than I would have anyway. So it
Yeah.
all worked in the end. But you really like it. It's hard because you get excited and you don't think all of those little things through like that. Transportation. I mean, listen, for me to go even to Thousand Oaks from LA, it's a $75 to $80 Uber ride. So
Mm-hmm.
if I don't have somebody else coming with me, I take an Uber up there, which is an hour, $80.
Mm-hmm.
If you like it, you turn around and buy it and you drive it home.
Right.
Okay, great. If you don't, another Uber back, you're out $200. Okay,
Right.
well, cost of doing business, it is what it is. But like, if it's something that I really like I have, AAA plus. So I'll
Sure.
call AAA and say, hey, listen, you
Tow it
know,
back.
it's not working. Just tow it back to my house. And I'll take a look at it. And you get at least a free
Yeah.
tow within 100 miles of your house. Something
Right.
like that. There are ways to get around there, but you do have to think about like, okay, well, if it's not the dollar amount, it's your time. If you see a car is an hour away from you, that's an hour there, an hour while you're there, and an hour back. That's 3 hours out of your
Correct.
day.
Correct. It's a
Sometimes that's
lot.
not easy to do.
Yeah. It's a lot. Searching for any type of used vehicles just takes time. It takes dedication. Um, like I said, Vinny and I, we do this semi-professionally. So we've been through this 1,000 times, but I think that, go back and re-listen because there's a lot of points in here that you really should follow if you're going to looking not only for a beater, but for any type of used
Yeah.
vehicle. Um, do not make an emotional decision. Try to be as pragmatic as you can. As Vinny stated, add up all the costs, whether it's insurance, whether it's transportation, your time, your outlays, all these things add up, you know. Um,
And be honest with yourself.
yes, yeah.
I'm this is a very hard thing to do because you start to justify and cut corners. You get frustrated to a certain point. Now, I'm a guy, if the car is available with a sunroof at some point, I like the sunroof. I know
Hmm.
that not everybody does. Everybody's got their own reasons for it. Oh, it's going to break. It's going to this, that. Well, listen, I like the open air experience driving a car. I like the wind in my hair. I like to be able to
Yep.
vent it and do whatever. Like I personally, for whatever my reasons are, if I can
Sure,
get
you'll
a
dig it.
sunroof, I want a sunroof.
Yeah.
Now, knowing that going into it, if I find the car that I want, it's the right color, it's the right mileage, it's the right price, but there's no sunroof, and I'm like, I don't really need the sunroof. You're going to hate that car.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're like, look, if you're so, I
And this
interiors,
is this is in the 1980s. You're not just going to poke a hole in it and slap a roof in there.
no,
So,
not you can't do that anymore. And interiors are a big thing. I have a lot of people that I talk to. They're like, oh, I got in the car and I thought I liked it, and it felt really small, or does this. So what you don't realize is that, and I learned this working at Maserati, is that if you have a car that from the shoulder line or the belt line on the top of the door, from there up will be black, but you could also, some of the car companies will give you an option for a gray or a lighter color
hmm
tan interior on top. So what that does is the black gives people the feeling of the cocoon. They
hmm
feel like they're more,
Sure.
kind of cockpity in the car, and they like that feeling. For a lighter color, it feels much, much more open. So for a car like a Mini Cooper or Honda Civic or something like that, if you feel like that car's too small on the inside, but it's all very dark inside, it's probably for that reason. If you get into another one that has the gray or the tan
Oh
interior
yeah, makes a
top,
big difference.
it makes a big difference. And you may not realize it if that's the reason that you like the car or don't like the car. But again, it goes
Right.
back to be honest with yourself and don't compromise.
Right.
It may take you another month to find the car that you need, but if you don't need it and you're just doing what
Right.
you and I do, which is shop for cars
Every
perpetually,
day. Yeah.
you know, just, like I said, just stick to your guns. If you have to make a list, if you have to make a checklist, if you have to have somebody that you have a discussion with, like you and I, and we know each other. You send me something and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, we talked about this. Like it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, that. You're like, "Fuck, you're right. Okay, great. And so we
Yeah.
move on to the next thing. But it's what it is. It's a big purchase for anybody. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter your situation, but spending 5 grand on a car, it's a commitment.
Yeah.
It's no different than you're rescuing a puppy. Like it's something that you're going to have, for a while, and it's going to be useful. And it could be a source of a lot of joy. It could be a source of a lot of frustration. It could be
Yeah.
a source of, things are better in the household because we have an extra car, or it could be fucking car's broken again. And, now we're, in a worse situation. So, you really have to, think it through, but enjoy the search. because you end up being an expert in that, whatever you're looking for, you end up being a little bit of a mini expert in the market.
Right.
And so over the couple of months of you searching for them, you start to realize, well, they're all the prices are in this range, and the ones that have this are getting that, and stuff like that. So it's it's all part of the process, all part of the ownership process.
It absolutely is. So I don't, listen, if anything, we didn't solve the world's problems today, but I think that what we did do is definitely help guide you if you were looking for a used vehicle and or that beater car, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing, like Vinny and I both said, do your due diligence, take your time. Um, always, if you can, always have a little bit of cash on hand. That always helps if you got to be the first person there to check it out, because that's how you
Yeah.
get that, you get the deals. Don't be afraid to negotiate, right? Because you can do that. You don't want to cut somebody in half, but don't be afraid to negotiate, especially if you have cash on hand. That's cash is
Oh
always
yeah.
king, as they say. Um,
Bring
but
somebody with
otherwise,
you.
bring somebody with you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Vin, thank you so much for coming on as usual. It's always a
Always
blast.
fun.
I'll
Yes.
probably talk to you in an hour with some stupid car that I forward you. Just say, should I
Probably.
buy this? In which case you'll say no. And then and that's it, dude. And for those of you, obviously, if you're looking for that used vehicle, check out Hemmings.com. We've
Yeah.
got 30,000 classifieds and auctions and make offer pages and stuff like that. We trust me when I tell you we've got what you're looking for. Our
And read,
producer Ryan Dow,
what's a good
thank
point
you.
too is like the auctions at
Yeah.
Hemming, read the comments,
Oh,
because there are other
always.
people on there that are asking questions that you're like, you know what, that's a good question. I should probably ask that in my search. Even if it's not for a car that you're looking for, or even better, if it is a car you're looking for, see what the other people are asking the questions on. Because if it's a very model specific, like a 69 Camaro or something
Yep.
that's kind of more like most of the cars that are on Hemmings, if you're looking for something like that, see what the other people are asking, because these are people that maybe are also looking for that same thing. Maybe they've already done the
Yeah.
research. Maybe they already have that car. They know what to look for. Listen, Land Cruisers, there's a thing called the PHH, it's the pesky heater hose. 9 times out of 10, it sounds silly, but it's a T-shaped plastic for the coolant
Yeah.
hose, and the plastic gets brittle and breaks. And when it does, it dumps all your coolant out. Now, the majority of people that own Land Cruisers have, like especially the 80 series is
Yeah.
what it's really known for. They don't know anything about it because it's never happened to them. It's never broken for
Sure.
them. When it does, it's a big deal. But like if you go to ask that question, the owner probably has no idea what you're talking about. But if you ask
Right.
that question and the guy's like, oh yeah, I did the pesky heater hose with the Northside Toyota kit, which is a brass fitting and silicone
Yeah.
hoses, like that. Now you've got somebody who knows their car. Now
Right.
you have somebody, whatever, and then that buyer is or that seller is actually going to talk to you and be like, okay, well, you know what you're looking for. I'm not going to bullshit you, and that kind of thing. So you become an expert in what that is, and you know what questions to ask. But read through the other ads and talk to everybody.
That's great.
Question,
That's the
email
first time I've
Mike.
ever heard that. But now I know something else that I didn't know about Range Rovers. The
Yeah,
PHH, the
yeah,
pesky. That's
the
awesome.
pesky heater hose. Yep, it's a thing. So,
All
all
right,
right,
folks.
thanks, Mike. I
Listen,
really appreciate it as always, and we will
Van, it's
next project.
always the next project. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the barbecue. Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.